You're watching The Legal Breakdown. Glenn, we have some major news on the contempt front, which is basically the tool that judges are able to use in the event that the federal government, the Trump administration, opts to defy the courts, which is what's happening right now. Can you explain what just happened in Judge Boasberg's courtroom?
Yeah, Brian, Judge Boasberg just issued a 43-page opinion finding probable cause that the Trump administration is in criminal contempt of court, that they willfully violated, defied his court orders to stop deporting Venezuelan immigrants to El Salvador. If planes were in the air, turn them around. If planes were about to take off, keep them on the damn ground. He didn't say damn, that was my addition. But this is a big effing deal. When a federal court judge, indeed the chief of federal district court in Washington, D.C., has found probable cause to believe that Donald Trump, his administration, his officials are in criminal contempt of court for defying court orders.
Can the Trump administration appeal this? Is any contempt findings that come out of Judge Boasberg's courtroom, are they final, or will the Trump administration try to avail itself of appeal options?
Well, let's first start with how the rule of law and how criminal procedure is supposed to apply. The answer to the question is no. This is simply a probable cause determination by the judge that he has ample evidence before him that the Trump administration willfully violated court orders. That is not an appealable decision, a finding of probable cause. Now, if the judge goes forward and holds a contempt trial and holds administration officials in criminal contempt, that would be appealable the way any other judicial finding at the end of a case or a matter would be appealable. But this is not something, I don't believe, that the Trump administration can start bubbling up to the Supreme Court. Now, might they try to do it? Of course. Might the appeals court give them some play? I don't think the D.C. Federal Circuit Court of Appeals, which is the appellate court that sits atop Judge Boasberg, will take it up. But with the Supreme Court, all bets are off. We've seen them do favors for Donald Trump in the past, favors that don't really comport with the language of the Constitution. Still, I think it's still in a preliminary enough posture that we're not going to see appeals filed, not just yet.
What do contempt charges mean in this instance? And is it enough to serve as a proper deterrent for an administration that seems hell-bent on just violating the law if it doesn't comport with their political ideology?
I sure hope it is enough of not just a deterrent, but an incentive to prod the Trump administration to stop violating the rule of law, stop violating people's due process rights, and bring back the 200 to 300 Venezuelan immigrants that you unconstitutionally sent to El Salvador. Because, you know, when you go through this 43-page opinion, I have to admit I'm still digesting it, there's sort of a cascading set of options and actions Judge Boasberg lays out. But the common thread that runs through it all is he's trying to encourage and incentivize, motivate the Trump administration to comply with the orders, even if only belatedly, and bring these Venezuelans back so they can have their due process rights honored. And some of those options that he lays out in this order include, he said, first, we may start with sworn declarations that I will order be filled out by Trump administration officials so I can figure out precisely which administration officials may have violated my order and who I should seek to hold in contempt. If that doesn't have the desired effect, then we're going to set either depositions, fancy word for, putting somebody under oath, not in court, but in a conference room, and having them answer questions on examination and cross-examination under oath so they can be used in later hearings. And you know what? Beyond depositions, Judge Boasberg said, I may conduct live hearings in my courtroom and I may compel government officials to come in and testify and be examined and cross-examined. And if that doesn't have the desired effect of forcing, coercing, compelling, encouraging the Trump administration to come into compliance with my orders, then he said, I can refer this case for criminal prosecution to the Department of Justice. Don't laugh. We all know that Pam Bondi would instantly kill that criminal referral from Judge Boasberg, but he's touching all of the possible procedural basis. And here's the part that I really love, and I love it because it shows a respect and a determination to abide by the rule of law. He said, I will appoint an outside prosecutor to prosecute the contempt charges against Trump administration officials if I have to. But as I say, Brian, the thread running through it is he's trying to encourage, incentivize the Trump administration to come into compliance, get these folks back, and give them their damn due process rights.
Do you think that there's some atmospheric precedent that's being established by virtue of Judge Boasberg barreling ahead and not cowing to this administration, and and recognizing that if the White House isn't going to comply, that he's perfectly willing to avail himself of, for example, contempt proceedings? Which, look, I understand, even though I don't agree with, but I understand how other judges might feel intimidated to take on the Trump administration. But do you think that Judge Boasberg going ahead and doing it is going to set some precedent that will embolden other judges to know that it is okay to uphold the law when you're dealing with a lawless president?
You know, this sets what I would call an atmospheric precedent because this is our constitutional construct at its finest. When co-equal branches of government are stepping up, are standing strong, and are willing to do every single thing that is lawfully available to them to compel the correct result by another co-equal branch of government. So this is exactly what the checks and balances in our Constitution that have done a pretty good job of keeping our democracy up and running for the last 200 plus years look like, and it's exactly what they should look like.
And finally, Glenn, what are next steps here now in terms of these contempt proceedings actually being effectuated?
You know, Brian, perfect question. And with respect to next steps, I'm going to go right to the end of Judge Boasberg's 43-page ruling because, pertinently, he has a section labeled Next Steps. Let me go right to his ultimate conclusion. He says, for the foregoing reasons, the court will find probable cause that defendants' actions constitute contempt, criminal contempt. The court will provide them the opportunity to purge such contempt. In other words, as we've been discussing, just comply with the dang law and the dang constitutional requirement of providing these people due process. But if they don't purge the contempt, if they opt not to do so, the court will proceed to identify the contemnors, in other words, those administration officials who violated the court's order, and refer the matter for prosecution. A separate order, so stating, will issue this day. Signed, Judge Boasberg.
All right. Well, look, that means that things are moving pretty quickly and in pretty unprecedented fashion here. So we will, of course, stay on top of this. For everybody who's watching right now, if you'd like to follow along and if you'd like to support our work more broadly, please make sure to subscribe. The links to both of our channels are right here on the screen. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.